Hey guys, I know it's been a while since I've posted a YouTube video about anything in general, but I wanted to talk about Tony Stewart. Obviously, you know, I'm actually pretty baffled by the comments that have been said that Nascar.com themselves see, that other social media outlets see, that really don't have to be there. You know, I see a lot of stuff on Twitter. I see a lot of negative rhetoric on Twitter, Facebook, NASCAR.com. Basically, anytime an article is written about Tony Stewart, it can be about positive things, which hardly ever is, or it can be about negative things. And another thing that baffles me is people hopping on the bandwagon and pretending that they were Tony Stewart fans from, you know, the very beginning. And all of a sudden they want to be his fan because of what he's been through, and I don't agree with that either. You were either behind him during the times of his success and you were a fan then, or you weren't a fan at all. And if you're not a fan during his struggle, then, you know, that's your own fault. I don't think Tony Stewart is the problem in terms of his 2015 season, and I've been very blunt about it. Chad Johnston is the problem over there at Stewart-Haas Racing, as well as the engineering department on the 14 team. Tony Stewart is afraid to ruin his reputation any more than what he already has due to that inadvertent accident with Kevin Ward Jr. So therein lies the problem for Tony inside, in his heart. Tony is a strong-hearted person, just as I am, and I know exactly what it's like. You can be doing 97% right and 3% wrong, and that 3% wrong is all anyone is going to want to talk about. You know, a lot of people go back and they want to talk about, well, why did you get rid of Darian Grubb? Think about how many races Darian Grubb cost him by 4-tire changes and stuff like that. Somebody go back and watch the 2011 Las Vegas race. Watch how Tony dominated that event, and watch how 4 tires was how they lost that race to Carl Edwards. Which I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. He'll always be a better crew chief than Chad Johnston. Chad Johnston has to go. He can still be a part of Stewart-Haas Racing, and I think that he could do quite well. It's just a crew chief role is not what he needs for Tony Stewart. Kurt Busch made the change and had Tony Gibson, and ever since then Kurt has been able to find that. Dale Earnhardt Jr. is another prime example. Went over to Hendrick Motorsports, and we saw the success, or lack thereof, that he had in the very first 4 years. 1 race win, and then last season 4 wins. This year he already has 2 under the direction of Greg Ives. So, not that Tony Stewart will probably hear this. I've tweeted Greg Zipadelli, the competition director. He's partly responsible for it, but the entire 14 team right now, it's not. Tony puts that team on his shoulders just like he done in 2011. But this is a different Tony Stewart we're talking about. We're not talking about one who's confident anymore in his abilities. And I honestly don't think that the aero package is the problem. You have to have a crew chief who can adapt to those things. And when I think of the word adapt, I automatically think of Tony Stewart. I automatically think of Jimmy Johnson. I automatically think of Kyle Busch. The reason I think that Tony is struggling is because they're not using their resources. They're not bringing the right cars to the racetrack. And until Chad Johnston is released, I don't look for Tony Stewart to be in victory lane. That's my blunt and honest opinion. You don't have to agree with it. It can come off cocky. It can come off arrogant. I'm a Tony Stewart fan. I'm not a Chad Johnston fan, and I never was. And I really didn't care for Steve Addington either, because, I mean, he was with Kyle Busch, left. Kurt Busch, left. Tony Stewart, left. I don't know why, but, I mean, he brought success to all 3 drivers and then jumped ship. So, I don't understand that part either. But if anyone's expecting Tony Stewart to win a race anytime soon, it's not going to happen with Chad Johnston. It's not going to happen with those engineers. And it's certainly not going to happen if NASCAR.com allows threatening comments, death threats, among other things that I've read. NASCAR, you should be ashamed for allowing it to happen. With the resources and tools that you have, I'm pretty sure that if these things were said about Dale Earnhardt Jr., they would automatically be deleted and people would be sued and or put in jail because it's an act of domestic terrorism. But the fact that you guys allow it is pathetic and inexcusable in 2015. Tony Stewart has been knocked down enough as a person, as an individual. People forget who he is outside of a race car. But that's the part that nobody wants to talk about, who Tony is outside of a race car. He's just like you and I. He has a heart. He has a mind. He has a mind, body, and soul. And you know what? Maybe the man is tore down, broken, lost, just like anyone else has ever been. But instead, we live in a society where it's okay to jump on people to make us feel better about ourselves. There is no love left in this world. There is no empathy, and there certainly isn't any sympathy for this man. Not that he's ever asked for it. He's taken on this situation head on, and he's got a lot more on his shoulders than we could ever possibly fathom. I'm sick of it. NASCAR.com, anyone who runs that should be completely ashamed. Twitter should be ashamed, and those that want to continue to knock on Tony Stewart and call him things and allege that he's a murderer when the grand jury has already proved and the case is done and over. And yes, I do offer my greatest impossible sympathies to the Ward family. They have every reason to be upset. If your son died, you wouldn't be too happy either, but there's no excuse for it. We all have to move on at some point, but until we move on, how can Tony Stewart? But that'll never happen because you always have ignorant people who think that they know it all, and they sit in their armchair and they think that they drive a sprint car, which you have to steer with the throttle. It's quick steer. They don't stop on a dime, and they don't have brakes either. But what do I know? But anyway, that's my rant for the day. Comment, let me know what you think. Share it with your friends, family. I don't care. I'm a Tony Stewart fan until my last heartbeat. I love that man to death. You may not. That's okay. You don't have to. But this video goes out to those that are Tony Stewart fans and those that know that other side of him. Tony, win the Brickyard. You deserve it.